today.
Woo!
We had Will do like the Freddy, like, what is it?
It's like
3, 2. Don't say the one, right? Amazing.
Yeah, I finger guns it. You know what's making me really happy this season?
What?
Paul has specifically finger guns the camera multiple times in my direction, and I recognized for the first time ever a contestant doing that to me specifically intentionally, because if you didn't know, what happened to my arm? Doesn't matter. If you didn't know, on my season I finger guns a lot, and then on Kelsey's season she finger guns me, and I did not connect 2 and 2 together that she was doing it as a callback, and then she hated me for the first year of our friendship.
So untrue. So untrue. It was our first interaction. She's coming around with the camera. I'm so excited. And I'm like, hey, Sam. And you just ignored me. So I didn't hate you, but I was terrified of you, and I thought you hated me. And then a year later, you asked me to do the show with you. So
look at us now.
Wild times.
Oh,
Isn't that a classic friendship start, though? You thought you hated each other, and then, wait, now we're best friends.
Yeah, here we are. Welcome back to SC After Dark, Yappers After Dark.
The late night scoop.
Yappers in the daylight today, though. Thank God we were able to start at...
I know.
7:30.
The sound is actually quite annoying. I feel like I'm gonna have to wear
Yeah.
I didn't have a hat at first,
right
and my
here.
angel of a husband was like, Kelsey, do you need a hat? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
This ear is gonna be beet red by the end of this video, I'm sure. But doesn't matter. We're happy to be here in the daylight, and I will say the reason we are doing it so much earlier today is because we have some stuff to get to. So we are on a time limit, people. So we're not gonna. I say this now, it's a lie. We are not going to be yapping as much as usual. We are. We're still going to yap. But I'm going to do my best.
We're here for a good time and a long time.
I am going to do my
Yapper's
best.
gonna yap.
Yapper's going to yap. I'm going to do my best to control our urges so that we have time to get through everything. Though I will say today we have significantly, not less content, because I think there's a lot of dynamics to talk about and work through, but we didn't do as many things today. We had fewer challenges and tribals than especially yesterday. Yesterday we were challenge, tribal. There's just so many things happening yesterday. So less things happened today. Yeah. Will just ran away.
That doesn't usually happen.
We've been abandoned. So we'll see what happens.
I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, I feel like I could say anything now. I mean,
it's really tempting.
not that
but
Will
anyway,
would stop us from
you know
saying whatever we want.
Will's gone, but we can stay on track.
We can.
Let's start.
Start us off.
Okay, the first merge challenge.
Yeah.
I overslept a little bit, and my roommates didn't wake me up, so I actually was pulling up right as that one started. So how about you take the first challenge?
I will. So this one was an elimination style challenge. It was in 3 legs, basically. So we started the merge today with 13 players, and John made it very clear when the first challenge started that the person voted out at this tribal council would not be on the jury. So we can assume then with 12 players, 12 is a really finicky number in Survivor, because no matter what type of final tribal council you have, a final 2 or a final 3, both of those numbers are 12 is divisible by both those numbers. So that means that it could realistically end in a tie, which is bad. So basically we usually don't see 12 jurors. So we knew that because there wouldn't be 13 jurors, that the first 2 people voted out at the merge were not going to be a part of the jury, which stinks, honestly. Is really, really hard and sad, because the merge feels like this really victorious time for everyone. You made it, you're gonna get to be involved in the end game all the way through to the end of the game, and that was not the case for the first 2 people voted out today, which I think is a toughie to get over, at least in my opinion. But that's a little tangent I wanted to go on. The challenge that I was going to tell you about was an elimination style challenge in 3 legs. The first one, they had a series of different wooden circles, wooden discs, that they had to stack on a paddle and race to the other side of the challenge field, and they had to stack them over there. Basically what happened, you could only stack bigger discs on top of smaller discs. It was a whole thing. There were a bunch of rules for it, but long story short is they had to balance some stuff and run it across a field. Then, once they finished that part, the first 8 people to finish that series of the challenge were able to immediately go over and start leg 2. So normally in leg style challenges or phases, we stop. Once the 8 people do it, then they all reset at the second part of the challenge. That was not the case for this one, which I found interesting, because it made the challenge a little bit more different than things we consistently see. And then they had to shoot a slingshot and hit a ceramic tile with a paintball. The first 4 people to finish that portion of the challenge then moved on to a bridge puzzle. So they had different planks that they had to fit into a wooden bridge, and they had to run and place them all individually. I went really into depth about that challenge. It was unnecessary. I will own up to that right now. I will be more calm, cool, collected in the future. We saw Luke M win that challenge, so congrats to Luke. It was a pretty dominant victory. I will say though, I'm pretty sure Luke's done that puzzle before. I can say it now because Luke is out of the game. Spoiler, if you didn't watch today, he did get eliminated in one of our challenges. Luke's mom has played a Survival Challenge. Michelle May played in season 9, 8. You were Javin. Season 9 of Survival Challenge, and both of his parents are here volunteering this year, and Luke actually came and volunteered last year and found out about the whole event and then came and hung out with us this year as a player, and I'm pretty sure he helped us work through and Dream Team that challenge last year, so I wasn't surprised to see him come out to a victory, but also I don't remember anything that I do when I Dream Team, so I doubt he remembered the challenge a year later.
I do see them across the way over there working on the barrels and the ladders, and I do in fact remember Dream Teaming that.
Yeah.
And we killed it, and we did it in like 10 minutes, and then they did it in season 9, and it took them like an hour and 20 minutes.
It was a toughie. It was in the pouring rain though too, so
fair.
we'll give him a little credit.
But anyway, Luke won. Everybody else lost. Everybody else was vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I think yesterday we saw a lot of, you know, pretty unanimous votes, pretty predictable.
Pretty unanimous. They were all unanimous. Every vote yesterday was a unanimous vote. There was no surprises.
And you know what? That makes sense. With such, you know, few options of people, like, you kind of all had to be on the same page to make something happen. So I think we all weren't really, like, sure what to expect coming into it. And, you know, this discussion is going. It goes pretty normally. But then Paul had to Paul. And he had to bring the drama.
Freaking council.
In the way that I genuinely thought it was a performance until I realized that it wasn't. He really did think the note was still in there, and it wasn't in there.
For those of you that didn't get a chance to check out that tribal, first of all,
go back and watch.
Go watch
Worth
it.
it.
Don't just take our word for it. Go watch it. But basically, that first vote, like, they had all night in the merge tribe, like, so they were probably pretty set on the names that they were coming down to for this first challenge, assuming that one of those people didn't, you know, win immunity. And it seems like Luke wasn't the target, because they came in, we knew the vote was going to be between Dan and Paul during tribal council, just based on the interactions. Paul is clearly worried about going home, and I guess has a safety without power in his bag that he said, oh, I got this because I was the one who picked the winningest tribe on reward day, so I got this advantage. And we're like, okay, cool, go off, Paul. So he starts individually taking out every piece in his bag, every single piece, and shaking it out. And he's telling us this story about how he got the challenge, or how he got the advantage and all this stuff as he does it. And then he's like, oh, well, this one's tree mail, and, you know, it picks up a scroll and all this. And it's not there. The advantage is not there. And so you can see, like, the panic start to set in on Paul's face of, like, I can't find this thing. It's not here. And everyone else is just sitting there silently. And a few of them are like, man, Paul, I'm really sorry. Like, that sucks. You know, man, like, sorry. You lost your advantage. Because it's clear that Paul is at a very high chance of going home, this tribal, based on the split, I guess. And so eventually, Ali is sitting behind Paul and goes, hey, man, like, do you think somebody took it? And Paul's like, well, they can't take it. It's my advantage. So, like, you can't look through someone's bag and steal it, which is a rule in Survival Challenge, and I'm pretty sure Survivor proper that you can't do that. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, you
steal an
can look
advantage.
through people's bags, I think, in the show, but you cannot steal an advantage.
Yeah, and I actually don't even think you can look through people's bags in Survival Challenge. I might be making that up. I don't know.
think you can.
It doesn't matter. Moral of the story is, if it's Paul's advantage, no one can take it. So they're all sitting there, and Ali goes, well, why don't you ask everybody? And Paul turns around to the group and goes, did somebody take my advantage? And Dan holds up the parchment and goes, yeah, you dropped it. I found it in the holding area. And everyone, like, Dan just sat there for 3 minutes while Paul took out and individually shook out each singular item in his bag.
Yeah, 3 minutes is maybe even not even doing it credit. It was a long time.
It was a very long time.
Like I said, like, at first you weren't really sure if he was kidding or not. Eventually it got very obvious that he wasn't kidding. And he very much so didn't know where it was. He didn't have it. And
yeah.
I mean, it was just wild in the way he just, like, pulled it out. I was gagged.
It was, so everyone is, like, gasping, like, oh, you know, he has it. And So then Paul was like, oh, like he seemed almost relieved that someone had found his advantage, right? Because he didn't give it to anyone, so obviously he can still use it, whatever. And then Dan was like, yeah, they found it. Like, I can't use it, but like I do have it. And then Paul was like, oh, well, then we need to have a conversation. And Dan was like, well, like what conversation do we need to have? And he was like, if you're gonna give it back. And he was like, no, I don't intend to. Like, I won't be giving it back. And Paul was like, why not?
And he was like, you know that is not really great for your game because you want me to leave because basically I'm a vote against you. And Dan was like, no, I'm good.
He was like, that's a risk I'm willing to take. And then they went to vote.
What? It was so good. I
my
mean, the
God.
tension in that little tribal area was so
You could cut him with
good.
a knife. Paul just sitting there, just like, and I mean, you can imagine. Obviously, we know. I mean, well, you might not know. We know. Dan does end up going home there. It ended up being a 6-count vote on Dan, 5 on Paul, 1 on Griffin, and then Ali also had an idol played for them. It was anonymously placed in the urn for Ali, and so that negated 1 vote against Ali. So we ended up with a 6-5-1. So maybe potentially one of those thrown votes on Ali or Griffin could have eventually helped or supported Dan stay in, but it all ended up being for naught. And I'm sure that, if Paul had gone home with that tribal, I'm sure he'd be just like,
I can't
kicking
imagine.
himself.
I
Like,
can't imagine.
oh, that's just like, that would be devastating. But also, Paul, an advantage, you are playing this tribal council. How does it fall out of your bag, my guy? I can say this in an intense way because Paul and I are friends. How does it fall out of your bag, Paul? And I'm sure you're asking yourself the same question, but like, what? That's wackadoodle. I'm gonna say it.
That is wackadoodle. That's crazy.
That's the thing that, like,
It's wild.
and I can really only, talk so much because I also kept my advantage, like, rolled up in my leggings when I was playing. But, like, now, if you're a seasoned Orger, you're a seasoned LRG player, like, you got to keep that idol somewhere where you know where it is at all times. Stick
Right.
it in your bra, your underwear, your shoe, put it somewhere. And I'm pretty sure Paul's was literally just a roll of parchment, so he could put that anywhere.
I don't know.
But it doesn't matter.
It was his lucky day.
It was like
Because apparently he didn't need safety without power. He had safety with power.
yeah, good for him.
And so he stayed in the game. We lost Dan. It was kind of sad to see him have that like big moment of like, oh, I have your advantage and I'm not giving it back, and then it didn't work out for him.
I know.
It kind of did feel like it was gonna go his way, and it was. I mean, I also know Paul and adore Paul, but it was kind of a moment of, Dan is somebody that is really rootable. We are going to have to take a short little break to thank our sponsors, Starbucks
and
Dairy Queen.
Wow.
We're gonna go back. What do you want?
Oh, I was like, are you kidding me? You got
That's
Kelsey ice
so
cream
rude
and not
that you got me
me?
something and
We're
not
on,
Sam.
we're on our way back. What do you want?
Oh, I want the peach cobbler mini blizzard. Thank you.
William, do you want anything?
I'll have one of those as well.
Okay.
Beautiful service here. I was actually going to flip this table if they brought. I asked at the same time as Kelsey, but that's fine. I actually
I don't
didn't-
understand the logistics.
I didn't specify what kind of blizzard I wanted in the chat.
Anyway.
What? Since we mentioned sponsors, I forgot. We do have a few sponsors that
Ooh,
we
new
forgot to
ones?
mention on our first
Oh,
stream.
yes, please say.
Being Pepsi.
Yeah, thank you, Pepsi.
I know, crazy, right?
Appreciate you.
Throwback to our season when we literally had like a Pepsi reward challenge. Remember when like our tribe like won
Yes.
those drinks at Tribal Council? Oh my
That
god.
was I was really sad because I remember there was a tribe that got to watch Tribal Council and drink random pop. But also, would you want to drink pop in a game like this? Like, I feel like it would upset my stomach so much to drink
Okay,
pop.
yeah.
to be fair, they were like seltzers because it was a Pepsi product. It wasn't literally Pepsi.
Oh, yeah.
And there was
Okay,
two
anyway,
different
season
kinds.
7.
Um,
Anyway.
Sorry, yeah.
Scotty's Potties, also sponsor.
What?
Scotty's Potties.
Scotty's Potties. Thank you. Scotty's Potties.
And lens rentals for
Lens rental.
Lynn,
For
you're the
all of our
best.
camera stuff.
yeah.
For people who like cameras.
For people who like cameras.
yeah. Can't recommend
I'm
them
sorry.
enough for helping with an LRG production.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I will say a lot of you have commented on how improved our streaming is this year. Once again, I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. It's all Will. Thank you, Will. We're all going to say thank you, Will, in the comments. But it has been a lot better. So if we got them through Lens Rental, genuinely thank you so much because I think it's just been such a better live experience this year, so you guys can follow along at home. And I'm just really excited for our cast this year that's going to be able to go back and relive some of these challenges and tribals a lot more concretely than watching a really, really horrible Skippy Audi, video on Facebook. So that's really great. But anyways, again, Paul, Dan goes home. Lost Dan. I also thought Dan was 100% going to stay there. I thought it was Paul by a mile, and I think Paul did too, which is just devastating. I also know Dan in real life, and is a friend of mine, and so I was really gutted to see him go, because I think that, it's very clear, I think, that people who are targeted at the merge are either playing like a really over-the-top game, and it's someone that's like a very notable, obvious threat, because it's someone that you're shooting for something that can be unanimous as the first merge vote, honestly. You want something that'll go through smooth to give you a little bit more time. But I think that because they had the most time they were ever going to have at this first vote, they wanted to take some kind of shot to really draw some lines in the sand.
And I loved that it wasn't unanimous.
I am so happy.
I hate that new era trend of like, oh, let's all agree on somebody to vote out. Like, no, I don't want to be congenial. And not that I like tribal line wars by any means either, but I don't know. I just love it. That intensity when it comes down to that last vote. I love that.
And we've had it a lot today, too.
We have. We've been spoiled for choice.
I also think that a unanimous merge vote is so naive. Because there's 2 or 3 people who are putting themselves in a horrible position and have just decided, okay, I guess I'm okay with this to appease other people. Bug just flew at my face. Appease other people, like what? I don't know. I do think it's naive. So I'm glad that it was very clear. Lines were drawn in the sand at this tribal, and I think that it started to get a little bit murky moving forward. So we'll see. Second challenge that we did today was walk the plank. So this was big. Something we see in a lot of modern Survivor seasons, like 41 through 46, is that usually at the final 10, they are divided into 2 groups of 5. They have to vote in those groups of 5, and it's this big double tribal. And I think we took kind of a page out of their playbook, because we made a really big kind of group challenge at the final 12. So all of our contestants were divided into 3 groups of 4. Those 3 groups of 4 were Paul, Kaylee, Nicole, and Leah, Luke M, Luke R, Val, and Declan, and Ned, Ali, KP, and Griffin. Those were the 3 groups.
Just drawn.
And they were literally boop, 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 random draw. Yep, drew a bandana. What they had to do was we rocked out our giant ass SC teeter-totters that were like literally massive. We had Lon, our probably tallest contestant ever at like 6'6", stand next to them, and it came up to like his shoulder. Like these are when it was level. They are giant teeter-totters. So we had one contestant get up on top of that. The other 3 contestants had to basically keep that teeter-totter even as the contestant worked their way back and forth, placing cubes, like lettered cubes, on the far end of the teeter-totter. So if you're thinking of like the science, the physics behind that, as they're on the end closest to you, the 3 other tribe mates have to hold it up, but then as soon as you pass that fulcrum in the middle, they have to push it down to counterset your weight. And again, this is not like it's not a thin teeter-totter that's like easy to grip onto. It's this giant, bulky thing, probably like, I don't know, like that big. I made that up, but it's really big. And
it is. I mean, when we started it, I was genuinely worried that they weren't going to be able to keep it up full time.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed by the way that, I mean, yes, it looked difficult still, but like the fact that nobody ever needed to like pause and really like take any breaks or,
they rocked
God forbid
it, for
that
sure.
nobody like, I mean,
hurt
Val
themselves.
fell a little bit, but was able to like catch it, thankfully. But yeah, it was very impressive to see how much strength they still have in them with so much like lack of food, lack of sleep, and we had Ned and his group who did an amazing job.
Absolutely.
He looked like a little
Spider
Cirque
monkey.
du Soleil. Okay, same thing. I mean, it looked easy, right? Like it didn't seem that difficult to him. Kaylee did a great job for her. A little bit more wobbly, but still rocked it out. At one point, they accidentally spelled the word mooing with their blocks, and that
She was like, "This is
it was the funniest thing to us in the world. And there were a lot of cow jokes made because we are sitting under the cow shade when we watch that happen. But she ends up pulling it through, and it is the group that is Val on top, and she was paired with Declan, Luke R, and Luke M.
Yep. So I think with this challenge, right, it's definitely a hero role opportunity because one member of the team is arguably doing all the work. Obviously, we know to do that work, they have to be supported by the other players, but there's one person who's on top, who's stacking the blocks up to spell the word, who's making sure that they're moving slow and communicate. Like, there's so many pieces and parts to it. And again, we saw Ned was, like, running on a balance beam 6 feet in the air. That's insane. So, Ned, great job.
Great job.
Kaylee was a bit more cautious. And then Val, we heard her say later, balancing is my thing. We all actually saw her win an individual immunity later for a balancing challenge, so that she felt very confident. But in this challenge, I don't know if it was the height off the ground that kind of freaked her out, or the fact that it was like a little bit rickety, because obviously 2 people are like holding her in the air evenly. But we saw her really struggle with this challenge. And she, even at Tribal Council, really owned the fact she was like, I feel like this one was completely on me, like I lost us this. And ultimately, it felt, I'm sure, like a really, really big and heavy loss because she was one of the ones that ended up catching votes at this tribal. So I think she felt like I'm letting myself down the most because she knew if I don't win this, there's a really good chance I specifically will go home. Like, I'm the one that's going to be targeted in this vote.
Yeah. I think that challenge specifically is really tough because it's like quite literally the spotlight effect. If you like fall or drop, it looks like it's all your fault, but at the same time, she can only be as good as the people that are like holding her base up.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, we don't know how wobbly it was or wasn't, but at the end of the day, they did end up losing, and that sent that group to tribal, and got a little bit of noise from the peanut gallery, but it's okay.
So like, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but they're like really loud.
I can hear it, and my ADHD,
it's
not
out,
great. It's like when there's fish or fireworks. It's like,
Yeah.
anyway, well, everybody went to tribal, but only those 4 were eligible to receive votes, and everybody could vote. And I mean, I don't even know where to start.
It's just like, first of all, when you go into that, right, you could be, like, we saw obviously a very clear split at the last tribal. We saw, it was basically like a, 6 and 6, 7 and 6, whatever, on Dan and Paul. So realistically, all 4 of these people could have voted in the majority alliance together for all we know, and the minority alliance could be completely safe and dandy. Didn't seem that way. It seemed like it was actually a 2-2 split based on the way that everyone was talking. So it seemed like it was either going to be Declan or Val because they were a part of the minority alliance, is what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I believe so too. I thought kind of a wild part of this that you didn't really consider at the time. Right before John reads the votes, Luke M stands up and he's like, you know what? Found this on the tribe flag this morning. Not really sure what it is. Haven't even taken the chance to open it. Like, what if that would not have been an idol?
It's like, hey, steal a vote. You have to read it before everyone goes to vote. And he's like, oh, just guess I gotta sit down.
Yeah, he was like, here, I think John even opened it for him maybe, or I don't know. It was so casual. And at the time, I kind of was thinking like, man, did he just blow that? After seeing like all the Val and all the Declan votes, because it's like, oh, you weren't even getting votes. Like, you kind of just blew that.
Yeah, what a waste.
It did end up mattering a lot.
Absolutely.
It mattered a lot.
And I will say, I mean, if you are coming into a tribal and there's a 1 in 4 chance you're going home and it's really early in the merge, you have no idea where everyone's lines really, really lie, and it's a really good opportunity to take a shot at a big player like Luke, who had just won individual immunity the last round. I think it was completely the right call to play that idol.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if he didn't catch any votes at all, the sense of security of knowing you're not going home with an idol in your pocket, I don't blame him at all for playing it.
No, absolutely. I'm a huge, huge, huge advocate for I'd rather look silly and not need to play it but have played it rather than going home with it in your pocket. I'm just saying, when I saw all the Val and Declan votes, I was like, oh, well, he didn't need it, right? Because we saw 6 votes for Declan, 6 votes for Val. John gave them just, a very little time to
60
discuss,
seconds.
And they go to revote. And so, right there, you're kind of wondering, okay, like, what's going to happen? Is anybody going to flip? And at the end of the day...
I want to say this before you say the revote. At the end of the 60 seconds that John gave them, he was like, you get 60 seconds to talk about it, and then I'm making you go revote, which I thought was very nice. He gave them any time at all before they revoted. At the end of the 60 seconds, the last word that I can hear is KP yelling to Luke R, Aussie Luke, saying, Luke, it's you if you don't flip your vote. And so we're all like, okay, this is like, if we go to rock situation, like we're starting to think about what are the ramifications if this vote ties again. And so that was the last thing I heard. And from what it sounded like later, I do think some people flipped their vote. But
Right. So it's always tricky because that's why you never want to tie the first one. Because it's not just like, oh, it's okay, I'll change it on the next one. Because, you know, I might know actually, but let's just say we don't know. And let's just assume multiple people flipped their votes. And because maybe one person did from one side and one person did from the other side, it cancels it out.
Exactly.
So the second time through, we have 5 votes for Declan, 5 votes for Val. At this point, those votes are considered deadlocked, and John is like, okay, like, give me a unanimous decision. And it was very clear that, like, the Declan side of it had all the leverage because KP, she was not changing her vote. Like,
Yeah.
she was like, no, I'm not changing my vote. Like, I'm not changing my vote. And at first, the people on Val's side, like, didn't really want to. But then as soon as they realized if they wouldn't, the only possible thing that would happen would be Luke M going home. Luke
Yes.
R going home. Most people started to be like, okay, like, yeah, I'll switch.
So if you're thinking of the survivor of it all, if you're like, wait, how did Luke R get even brought into this? Like, he didn't even get any votes. Basically what happened is we have all 8 people are immune. There's nothing we can do to vote those people out this round. Luke M played an idol for himself. There's nothing we can do for him to be voted out this round. Those 9 people are 100% safe, meaning there are 3 people left in the game. Traditionally in Survivor, when there is a tie, there is a revote. If that revote ties, then they have a consensus period, like Kelsey just explained. If they cannot come to consensus, the remaining players eligible to be voted out go to rocks, where every player draws a rock from a bag, flips it over at the same time. Whoever gets the black rock leaves the game, or the white rock, actually, I think it is. It doesn't matter. Whoever gets that rock leaves the game. In this instance, the 2 people deadlocked in the tie would not be drawing rocks, so Declan and Val become immune, meaning that Luke R, Aussie Luke, was the only person left in the game who could have drawn a rock, and thus would be automatically eliminated from the game. Right when they deadlocked...
I just got chills, actually.
Right when they deadlocked into the tie, like, instantly people started, like, getting up and talking and blah, 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 and we had to go back and actually explain, like, hey, this is what's going to happen, because it seemed like some people thought everybody was going to draw a rock, and it's like, no, you're immune. You earned your immunity. Good job. But yeah, I think you are right, Kelsey. There was a very big shift when they realized, like, we're either losing Val or we're losing Luke.
I'm pretty sure every single person, down to the very last person that was asked, said that they were switch. But Ali was like, no, I'm not switching my vote.
In the same way that KP deadlocked for, or like was not swapping for Declan, which makes sense. They had that original bond from Coco. Yeah, Ali was like, I will not be switching my vote. Like, Luke, see you later, guy. And he had all the power that round.
Oh, it just felt interesting because he was the only one on that side that wasn't willing to. It would have been one thing if it was kind of like a mutual decision, but the fact that all of his other allies were doing it, I was a little shocked he didn't follow suit. I mean, good for him. I always think in this game you should do the thing that feels right for you and best for you, and, you know, who knows what type of relationship he had with Val versus Luke. But it was pretty hard to see it come down to that because, I mean, Luke M, I run the Instagram and somebody had like just sent me a message of like, wow, like Australian Luke hasn't gotten like any votes so far. He's doing so good. And it's like, he still hasn't gotten any votes, but now he's eliminated. And I do believe, we were just talking about this, me and Will, that he is the only player in Survival Challenge history that has been eliminated from the game in a tribal council setting without receiving any votes.
Yeah, other notable mentions go to Chris O'Neill from your season, who went home with rocks, but thanks to you,
I voted for him.
And then we also had infamous rock draws, such as the one from season 5, where the tribe of 3 survivors in solidarity all voted for each other, thus all drew rocks, and then that's how they let it decide. But obviously they all voted each other to make that happen, so that's a vote.
What a questionable
and then
choice.
Andy and Jordan, who went home with no votes, however, was during a challenge, because that's a
They
thing that
placed
happened
last,
in OG
yeah.
Survival Challenge. You could go home from losing a challenge.
Yeah, I'm glad we got rid of that twist. Thank you, John
so
and company.
no votes, going home at Tribal, insane.
And he handled
Insane.
it so well. I mean, who knows what he was feeling internally, but I just kind of kept thinking, like, wow, this was me.
I'd be lighting some people up when I was walking out. I can
Dan,
say
Dan threw that note in the
confidently.
fire. I'd be like tossing whole persons in the
Exactly.
fire.
Oh my God, no, I would have been livid. So.
Or maybe just completely shell shocked. I don't know, but that was kind of disappointing to me. No, I mean, it's so disappointing to lose anybody, obviously, but to lose in a way that you feel like you didn't necessarily do anything wrong to deserve it per se.
It's crazy how quickly everybody except literally within seconds everyone was like, oh, I'd definitely rather keep Luke. And that's not to say that obviously Val made an incredible relationship with Ali to the point where he was like, I will make every single one of you mad to keep Val. That's like a duo right there that I did not clock personally from the challenges and seeing them. But I was just wow, I was so impressed about Luke's clear social game that he had.
Right. And so shout out to Luke M for playing that idol, because even though he did not get any original votes, he therefore was safe and didn't have to draw rocks when there was no unanimous decision. So
big move.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Again, we have limited time, so we need to quit yapping and get snapping.
I mean, that was a tribal for the
That was a
ages.
good one, though. I know those first two tribals were both so juicy.
The other ones
less
we'll
juicy, but
quicker.
still good. So our next challenge was Touchy Subjects, a survival challenge, Survivor Classic. It's where all of our contestants individually filled out a survey where they answered their personal beliefs, or the intention is they answer with their personal beliefs to a question of superlatives, basically, who's the hero, who's the most likely to stab you in the back, who's most likely to win the game. Questions that are supposed to draw out some of the social lines in the game of Survivor. So they answer that question personally. Then they all come out together to a fire burning with effigies representing their likeness hanging above it by ropes.
I love that.
So culty of us, honestly. so cult classic challenge. I love it. But basically, they all then have to answer the same questions again, but rather than thinking about what their personal answer to that question is, they are trying to choose what they feel the majority answer to that challenge is. So even if I trust Kelsey the most in the game, and that's what I wrote down, if the question is, who do you trust the most, you're trying to think, who out of everyone left in the game do most people trust the most? This is an incredible challenge. I love this challenge because, again, it really clocks people and what their game looks like, and really how they're playing, and it makes you kind of confront the end game possibilities of certain people. So there were a lot of good questions that we learned a lot about, and I have all of them listed here. If you want to go through and read all of them, please check out the daily recap document. It is linked because Will is linking it right now.
Or you did.
He's pinning it in the comments. It's also one of the graphics on our Instagram, yada, yada, yada. But it has all the answers in there. But some notable things from this challenge were that Ali got a lot of heat. He got a ton of answers. Within the first two questions, he got, who do you trust the most? And also, who is the biggest liar? Back to back, he was the majority answer. We also saw him as the biggest strategic threat, most likely to stab you in the back. Who thinks that they're running the game? Who's the biggest hero? He was an answer again and again and again. And in this challenge, getting a lot of those larger than life answers is kind of showing everybody, hey, if you can claim those things on your resume at the end of the game, it's going to be something that's really, really good for your game.
I feel like the timing of Touchy Subjects wasn't all too great for him. I mean, he just had that moment in the tribal council where he effectively sent Luke home, which is what kind of nobody else wanted to do. So who knows, who's to say that he would have had that much heat on him if it wasn't for the specific timing, but I think with the timing of it, that was rough for him. I found myself wondering throughout this challenge, it's so interesting because almost every single challenge you perform, you always want to do your best, right?
Yeah.
This one, I don't know, where some people occasionally getting answers wrong so they didn't have to go up, because the thing about getting a question right is you have to, kind of make a move against somebody else by snipping their cord, and that has social ramifications. And also, sorry, there's people walking by, and again, my ADHD just can't handle it.
Same. I'll take over though because I'm looking the opposite direction
Thank
from
you.
some people walking by. Basically, yeah, what are the ramifications socially? Like, it felt like specifically Ned, who ends up winning the challenge, noticed a lot of like social, political kind of moves that he was making. He actively at one point let Kaylee go before him because I think he was hoping that maybe Kaylee would knock somebody else out of the challenge for him so that he didn't have to be the one to knock. I think it was Griffin left in the challenge out because it was just the three of them left at the time. He really did not want to be seen as a bad guy in this challenge, and I think that made me really clock or feel like he is playing a really like socially maneuverable, maybe floaty middle player game.
Right. It was odd because Kaylee had that moment where I think it was in between. She could have cut the last thing for Griffin's cord, which usually is the thing that you do. It's kind of good to be the person to cut that last cord because then that person can't like come around and get you back. And it's just, I think, a thing that most people do unless it's like, you know, a really good ally of yours.
It's how you win the challenge.
And instead, she goes up and cuts Ned's cord, who she knew was going to go right after him. And so instead of going and cutting Griffin's cord, like I think maybe she thought he was going to do, he's like, all right, like, checkmate. And he goes and cuts hers instead, and then is able to get that next question right and also cut Griffin's cord.
And win the game eventually. I will say, again, let's go back into maybe some of the more answers that we got with this one. I think another person that stood out as getting a lot of maybe potentially these might help or necessarily hurt my game because I'm being called out is Luke M. got a lot of questions. He got who's most likely to be voted out next, tied with Paul. He also got, there was another one. Boop, 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 boop. Who are you most surprised to see still in the game? Tragic. Who do you wish you had already voted out? Horrible. And then whose FTC speech would be the most convincing? Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Travis.
can
Thank
we
you, Devin.
stop? I can't. Thank you.
Anyway,
Sorry, we
sorry, a
are
lot
the
of
most
things.
distractible people in the world, and we do this in a very public setting.
It's a very public setting.
We're doing our
It
best.
used to not.
There's just a lot of people around, and it's also Night Tribal Day, so oh no. Anyway,
Yeah.
I made mistakes, and I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna eat this later. Anyways, I'm so happy to be here. Okay,
We're also out of our element. Usually, so, you know, maybe we work better in the dark. It's
I think this is
sunlight.
it.
That's
It's
why
too
after-
sunny. You can see too many distractions.
Normally it's just
people are walking around. Usually they're all gone by now, and we're like the last 3 people here.
Yeah, you can't see any of the bugs until they get this close to your face.
yeah,
you
this
aren't
is a lot.
swatting at them as much.
But anyway,
There were definitely, the moral of the story with touchy subjects, there were some winners, there were some losers. Some people that really got their game clocked very, very clearly, and some people that I think skid by in the middle. I don't think Ned was the answer to a single question. KP had maybe one answer. Kaylee, Nicole, one answer. There's also the flip side of the coin. Rather than getting all these like quote unquote good superlatives about how great your game is, there's also some people that got some superlatives that were like, hey, maybe you should change the way you're playing. And this hopefully will be a wake up call for them. We saw that Leah got a few answers that probably didn't make her feel super good. She got whose speech do you think would flop at Tribal Council? A player that you forget is playing the game still. So I think that we saw Leah eventually win an individual immunity challenge very shortly after Touchy Subjects. I think it was the next one after that. So watching her have that kind of like 180 to be like, okay, you figured I'm playing, let me friggin' remind you. I really love to see that from Leah today.
yeah, absolutely. So things got touchy. There were subjects. Ned
So
won, and we go to Tribal Council, and
We see.
we see Queen Kaylee return, and there she goes again. Gets a lot of votes, but refuses to go home.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
She was the decoy vote in every vote yesterday. It was incredible. So watching her get that 6-5 split against Ali, I also think very telling. Again, touchy subjects happens. We break for lunch. We come back, and suddenly King Ali, the guy who's gotten all these great superlatives, who everybody loves and trusts, but also would stab you in the back, goes home. So I think that again, really not a good time for him, and he went home because of it.
Yeah. It's very interesting because sometimes when you see that person that gets a lot of repeated votes, it's more in a goat type of way
Yeah.
of, you know, like, oh, we're using the decoy because we know that this is somebody that we never actually really want to get out because we want to just drag them to the end because we think we can beat them.
Yeah.
And my perception is that this is not the case.
That's not
like,
the case,
my
Kaylee.
perception is that they are, like, worried about her and feel fearful of her. And, I mean, I think they should be because
Yeah.
I think we're kind of starting to maybe sense a grouping of the two twosomes.
Yeah.
Plus,
Coco,
I think
yeah.
there has to be a couple other pairings there, but
It does seem like they're working.
it seems
together,
like, and
though,
it
yeah.
that makes sense. They can bond over the fact that they were both the tribes that got down to two people, and that is something that is really hard to go through.
Absolutely. And I also think that with this one we saw, again, a reason I don't think that this is true for Kaylee is she got, her singular answer that she got is, who do you think is running this game? Like, who is the one pulling all the strings? People voted for Kaylee. She was the majority answer for that one. So seeing her being that's the only superlative she got means she's playing a good enough under the radar game that they don't see her as the overt hero of the season, but they know when they really think about it, who's making the choices, who's making the decisions about who goes home? Kaylee is. Interesting. Alrighty, so we saw Ali go home that tribal. Moving on to our next challenge. It was the fourth challenge of the day. It was well balanced, and I mentioned it earlier. We saw Val win this one. It was basically like a balance beam challenge. They had those idols from Last Idol Standing from yesterday, the paddle, put the idol on the paddle, and they had to move down a slightly like decreasing sized balance beam in 3 sections. We actually had to add 2 levels of difficulty to the end of this challenge to knock out either Kaylee or Val, both of whom I feel probably really felt like they needed this immunity since they were the person that didn't go home during the last 2 tribal councils.
Yeah. And can I just say, I kind of thought about this. I don't know why this is the first thought, and I probably shouldn't be sharing random thoughts because we're on a budget, but on a time limit. But I have to say it. Think about it in all Survivor history. Whenever there is modifications made in challenges, it's because women are doing so good that they just have to think of ways to make it harder.
Yeah. I agree.
And you
No
know what?
notes.
I get it, especially in the SC sense. We are on a budget of time.
Yes, genuinely.
Makes sense. But in general, I'm like, goodness, I want to see them duke it out like Tom and Ian and Christian and Alec, but I digress.
This is something that maybe I can convince John to do someday since he's walking right behind the camera right now.
He's acting like he doesn't hear us. I wonder if he does.
We're going to do an overnight 12-hour endurance challenge in the pond. He said no. He instantly said no, but
12-hour
Owen
endurance
said yes.
challenge for season 12.
Woo! We're never going to get that
I'll
to
host
happen.
it, John. You can go to bed. Oh, see?
Now we
Now
got,
we got
thumbs
the
up.
thumbs
So
up.
it's really, he's asleep by 9 every night. I don't even know how we convinced him to do a night tribal each season. He's against it. So we saw Val win that challenge. She rocked it. I think she really
Killed
felt
it.
confident going
Kaylee
into that
did great
challenge
too,
and
yeah.
also felt like she needed it. And I think Kaylee did too, which is obviously why it stinks that, it was down to the 2 of them. Well, I guess it was good, but stinks Kaylee couldn't pull it out. Go back to tribal council, and something I'm noticing as we're scrolling through this, we really were all over the board today with votes. Like every tribal council, they targeted somebody different with a different vote who wasn't the one that went home. Like we have split votes, very, very closely split votes for completely different people. Like that person who didn't get voted out wasn't getting attacked the rest of the day, which I think is so weird.
It's very odd. It's not normal, but I also think that speaks to how much this cast was mixed about. I think somebody even made that remark during a tribal council. It's like they were randomly put together in these groups on day 1 based on competition, and then they were mixed into their starting tribes,
So
and
intermingled.
then they're mixed again with the swap and mixed again with the merge. And I think because of that, you're seeing a lot of dynamic gameplay. You're seeing people that maybe originally held loyalty to one of those groups at first and thought, no, actually, I still like those other people a little bit better.
more.
And maybe other people are like, actually, no, I like these new people more. And it's been really cool to see, like, how dynamic of a season it is with, like, the target diversity, if you will.
Actually, though, I completely agree. So we did see Luke M go home this tribal. So both of our Lukes knocked out in just a couple of hours. 7 votes on Luke, with Ned being the one who caught the other 3 votes, which a 7-3 is actually the biggest vote split we saw. Like Luke did get the majority there, and honestly, if I had to guess what this one came down to is that maybe even members of Luke's original alliance started to feel a little bit threatened by the fact that he was doing really well. Like he was a clear kind of like front runner earlier in the merge of like, I'm someone who's really good at challenges. I'm very good at talking. Like he was a chatty guy. And when he talked, like people listened to him.
Yeah.
Like he's got a very compelling voice, and he actually won the superlative earlier in Touchy Subjects that was most likely to have the convincing final tribal council speech. And it's like, I don't want to sit next to somebody
Right.
that I think's a better talker than me. Like that.
I think all the time you see people. No, okay, maybe not all the time. You definitely see people occasionally who maybe didn't play the better game, but just because they're able to communicate in a more effective way, they go on to win the game. So I think it is
Absolutely.
incredibly valid of them for wanting to target him. Not to mention he was a beast in physical competitions.
Had a really good idol play a couple rounds before.
Yeah,
Like he was definitely adding some bullet points to his resume early on. And that's what you gotta fear in Survivor. You can't add things to your resume too early, because if you do,
Yep.
you get sniped around 8 or 9.
But as I said last night, he was here for the experience. He wanted to live
Absolutely.
it out and
He
do
did
it to
that.
its fullest, and he absolutely did that. So.
Absolutely do that. Alrighty, final challenge of the day, at least until we go and do one on the stream in a little bit for you, is Make It Count. This one is another classic survival challenge where we basically put random assortments of items all over the challenge field, and they have to go count them and bring those correct numbers back to the spotters. First person to get all the correct numbers wins. This season, though, it was a heavy swimming challenge. So for 4 of the 5 things they had to count, they were in the ponds, and they had to swim and go find them and find out those numbers in the water, which meant that it made it, honestly, I feel more of an endurance challenge than a counting challenge, almost, of like who is the one that can like swim out and get all that. We did offer life jackets, which I thought was very kind, because we don't want anyone to die, especially since they were treading water for so long near some of the challenges. So that was that one. We saw a pretty dominant performance by Leah in this challenge. I think the only person that was really competing with her for the victory was Kaylee, who also performed very well, but Leah bodied it, low-key.
I was like pretty blown away. Javin, I think, is fair to say one of the more athletic people that most of us know in our lives.
Yes.
And he did something very similar to this on his season, and like he states it as like the hard, like basically the hardest thing he's ever done. And I know that I heard horror stories from Travis and Grace and several other people of when they dream teamed it and how impossible it was.
Yeah.
And so I thought this one, it's going to take a long time, because if anything, usually, the dream team people are able to do it maybe a little bit better, easier, because, they're not tired and hungry and nervous.
There's no stress. They just get to do it for fun.
And when she, she annihilated the competition, because I actually, surprise, surprise, somebody made me do another thing. Evan made me be a spotter for that challenge, and I was over there at the table with the jar, and I think only 2 other people even made it to my station before she had won. Incredible.
So, love to see that from Leah, especially considering that she, during Touchy Subject, was counted down and out. So to start her kind of maybe comeback victory scope, I'm I'm really ready for that for Leah.
Also,
so I'm
the
keeping my
last
fingers crossed for her.
Lonan standing. Lonan standing.
Yeah, she is.
So,
Wait.
I
Is
maybe
she?
made that up.
I know, because I think everyone else is in pairs, because Val mentioned that at the final tribal council she was the last Tawa.
And Lisa, Kat. Yeah, she's the last one.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, and it must have been a swap tribe.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that, because I remember 2 nights ago I was talking about her and she was the last one picked, but I said her and Dan. I said her and Dan.
Yeah,
They both
you're
got it,
right.
and they were the last 2, and so
Yeah. So we did see that. Then we went to tribal council afterwards, and the reason I thought she was the last one is because at tribal council, Val made a very heartfelt pitch to say, "Hey, I'm the last Tawa standing. I'm the last one. Look over there. All of my tribe mates, all my friends are sitting on the jury right now. Why are you going to vote me out when I'm a number? I can help you. Whatever moves you want to make, I can help you make those moves." And I think that, I don't know, unless you have a very clear, strong, solid, tight majority, I'd be really compelled by Val's testament there and kind of her request, because that is the number 9, 8, 7. Those are the numbers that you make those really, really big moves. So I was just really shocked to see them honestly not follow through on that. I thought they were gonna take her up and hopefully make a big move there.
yeah, absolutely. I think I loved her last words. She said, "Don't be boring. Do it for the plot."
Do it for the plot.
And, as audience members, we're always rooting for the chaos. Maybe it's not the best game decision, but we love chaos.
And we love that Val is encouraging the chaos.
Yes,
of a
absolutely.
season. Yeah, it was really sad to see Val go because it seemed like she felt, especially like just how earnestly she was pleading at Tribal. I think she felt like she had a lot of game left to play.
Yeah.
I feel like she had a lot of game left to play. And I'm trying to think of what she received during Touchy Subject, so I'll go back and do a quick look. But it seemed like in a pretty good place where people weren't really, like catching her, except for, oh no, the only one that she was the answer to was who is going to be a bitter jury member. Maybe if they don't do it for the plot, she's going to be all
good
bitter
for
against
her,
them.
because I feel like she's going to be like, you had the opportunity. Well, I mean, I guess that would be to her fellow jurors of, you had the opportunity to use me and you didn't. But, oh well.
Yeah. We'll
Anyway.
see. So that was a recap of today. We had all of those challenges. We have one more challenge, one more tribal that we are doing tonight. We're going to bring them back in just about 30 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes, to do that challenge in the kind of spooky little dim light, and then go to a night tribal to really get that full kind of Survivor canon experience. But before we go, we're going to bring on our special guest for tonight to talk a little bit about the end game of Survival Challenge, because there's a whole new ball game tomorrow. Day 5 is really niche territory that you got to play a certain type of way, and we want to know what it takes to get to FTC. So we are going to bring on one of our finalists from season 10 9 of Survival Challenge. I block out season 9 because I got COVID.
It was a bad time.
So did Kelsey. It was a bad time. We did the final one on Zoom. Isaiah's here to talk to us about
Yeah, I was
it.
going to say, throw back to the time we had to do it on Zoom.
It's
man.
good to be home.
Here we go.
I'm glad to be back.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about, first of all, I think what I want to know most is, what do you feel like it takes to get to the end game? What is the most important thing to take into consideration on day 5 from 2 people that did not make it there?
I think that even if you have solid relationships, solid alliances, you still need to be willing to be flexible. You still need to be willing to say, hey, maybe I don't go with the people I might have been with this entire time, because you never know what their game plan is. You never know what they're thinking, because at the end of the day, they're planning to beat you at Final Tribal Council, right? So for my season with Baltazar, I completely was naive to the fact that he had all of this in the back of his mind, ready to just steamroll over me. So I was shocked, as everyone can see if they've ever seen the streams. I was bewildered and befuddled because I thought I had it in the bag. And then maybe that's another thing too, is don't go in being too cocky as well during the last day. You could be having the best game, you could have played an idol, you got 2-3 immunities on your belt. That doesn't matter. Every single round, you have to just be ready to be adaptable, flexible, and ready for anything, because you never know. So.
Yeah, I mean, Baltazar, he has the gift of the gab. He can.
He's a certified yapper.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
I mean, they said that Luke was maybe gonna have a great speech. I don't think anybody can out speech Baltazar. I mean, I guess Matthew can.
Matthew
actually.
did, yeah.
Matthew
yeah.
did. But anyway,
Yeah.
this season,
Right.
who do you perceive as the most likely people to maybe make it there?
Who's in the best spot?
FTC seats.
Well, so currently, based on the standings that we have with, I've kind of been thinking about, original, tribes, right? And I think it's highly possible that either the 2 pairs of orange and purple,
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
both, 2 of the, well, actually, it's the final 2, so those 2 I think it could either be a pair making it somehow, or at least one person from one of those pairs, and a final 3 situation, one of them are going to cut the other. Because you never want, as what I did, you don't want to take someone, in my opinion now, looking back at it, that has played the game with you the entire time, because if they're not there to tell their story, there are things that you might be able to say that were part of your story that they can't really claim because they're not the ones claiming their case to win. And I think that's maybe where I think Brinkley had a chance to kind of get that extra vote over Baltazar, was we and Baltazar were going back and forth, having to defend why, no, that was I did that. No, I did that. Matthew was like, well, this is what I did, and I have no one else to say anything else, you know?
Yeah, and he's also just like the most likable person
Right,
in the entire world.
exactly.
The beautiful,
exactly.
And
amazing.
he's
Yeah.
he's so great to like look at.
Yeah.
I mean, come
Right.
on.
No,
Right.
no, beautiful, gorgeous, amazing. He's great.
Yeah.
But I completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it's like if you are coming into that end game, right? Going in with your number one duo, it's like you guys probably did a lot of things equally together. It's not even that you and Baltazar didn't do those things together as equals.
Right.
But now you're trying to say, well, I did this. No, I did this.
Right.
And the people are going to say, well, I don't care. I'm just going to vote for the guy who did everything else on his own.
Exactly.
So going in with your duo kind of partner, you don't want to try and thread that needle
Right.
just to
Yeah. It's a
do
more
it.
uphill, more of an uphill battle having
Absolutely.
to defend
Yeah.
yourself against someone.
I think you
for
want to
sure.
like leave as least up to interpretation as possible. And when two people have two different sides of the story, there's a lot of interpreting going around.
Exactly,
And at the end of the day, a lot of people are probably just gonna vote for,
whatever they want.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I think that
People can
also
vote however they want.
with those pairs though too on the other side of the coin, I think that people like Ned and like or not Ned, sorry, Ned's not by himself. Leah, for example, who is the only person from her original tribe, can kind of utilize that as a swing vote situation,
Absolutely.
right? And can find herself again being that Brinkley, being that like no one else is here to say anything about my tribe, my pre-merge, anything like that. So I feel Leah is probably in a good spot.
Absolutely.
And then depending on how these next couple of rounds go with the current Wupoo members like Griffin, Paul, Ned, it's hard to say because they technically are the tribe that has the most current
Absolutely.
members, and I don't think it's hard for me to figure out who in that three has been playing the best game. I feel like they're all pretty equal so far from what I've seen. Paul obviously is a lot more of like a vocal player, which can be a good thing, but it can also sometimes be a bad thing. I feel like also as we've seen in tribals, Paul talks very fast. I also talk very fast, so I understand. Talks very fast and kind of get mixed up in his words, and I'm wondering if Paul might struggle with slowing down, putting his words together, putting that story together, and telling it in a way that it doesn't seem sporadic. It doesn't seem like he just came up with it on the fly,
I hear you,
and that he actually was really, really thinking about it. You know, from a certain point to the
absolutely.
end. So.
One could say he's a little polarizing.
Yeah. Okay.
Have to.
It's so hard to be here sometimes.
Anyway, I feel like I have said several times on the stream that I don't know much about Ned. I haven't gotten to experience him a lot. I was the person that interviewed him for his touchy subject answers, and I just have to say, after one interaction with him,
You're a stan.
I adore him.
Yeah.
I think he is wonderful. I am now rooting for him. I mean, who am I not rooting for? But at the same time, like when he went on to like win touchy subjects, I was
Right. I love that.
so, I know it's hard this season. Everybody's been so spread apart, and there's been so many things to look at that it is harder to get those like interpersonal moments of
Yeah.
really seeing somebody shine. But in that moment, I definitely saw like why he's still around, why he's in this game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It would be really fun to see two of those duos make it, but it also is going to be really fun to see if one of those duos eventually makes the decision to the knife and the hug in the back or whatever.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that really
the best
is
way
the
to
plan.
stab somebody in the back is by hugging
I
them.
hug it. Yep.
Yeah.
Who was that again?
I thought it was Val, but someone's got to quote me on that because I don't remember. Someone said it.
Someone did say it.
I just don't remember who, but
But I definitely think both duos. I don't think either of them are thinking we're gonna go together all the way to the
They're
end.
all gamers.
Yeah.
no, I was
They're
gonna
all
say I can
gamers.
tell you right now, based on the way I'm reading KP's game, KP's not taking Declan.
Heck
again.
no, heck no.
And I'm sure
I
Declan's
don't
thinking
think
the same
Declan's-
thing.
Yeah, I don't
no,
think
they're not
Declan's
taking. They're not
KP.
taking KP either.
Declan historically does love to lose to strong, powerful women in these
Oh,
games.
yeah?
And we love that
Honestly.
about them.
Yeah.
Also, just a little, I don't know if you guys probably already mentioned it, but it is their birthday today.
It is their
So
birthday.
happy
Yes, happy
birthday.
birthday, Declan.
We love you.
So yeah, I definitely don't see that happening at all. Again, it would be fascinating if they did that, but I would be more, I guess, not concerned, just more curious as to how they're going to differentiate their games. Again, having been together for so long.
Kelsey mentioned it previously. I do think that one way they will be able to differentiate their games is because they've been so scattered. So yes, they were on that main tribe together, that original tribe, but then we also have their swap tribe experience. Oh, no, they were together in swap.
Yeah.
So really, I guess you're right, just that first night experience, and if any of maybe those original alliances or relationships that they made on the very, very first night ended up influencing and maybe giving them a route to like navigate in the merge. I'm gonna go back and look at who they were all with. You guys keep thinking about how everybody's chances are.
Yeah. I think so as we've seen with I feel like Kaylee. I'm worried that Kaylee has had the reins on her game the entire time. And as someone, I played a game with Kaylee, her first game back with Can You Survive, and in that game, my perception of her was she got fourth place. She did better than me, but she didn't have the control that I think she was looking for. She constantly had to find her spot in order to get herself further. And I think this time around, I've seen a Kaylee that is like, no, I want to control my destiny. I want to control my journey. I don't need other people telling me what I need to do because I know what I need to do to get there. And I think that's
she can do whatever she wants.
Exactly. Truly. And I love seeing that side of her just from day one. I love seeing. I could tell. I was like, I know what you did the first game. I'm seeing the difference now is wonderful to see. But I think it's going to be hard for her to, because her threat level's open and out there. Like everyone can see it. She's already gotten votes. She was very close to going home. So it's going to be, I think, a little bit more difficult for her to get to that end.
I think that's a great point, though. Like that whole idea of wanting that agency and not being scared of the power, because I think when you fully embrace that, like even jokingly as like a production manager, I've been like, oh my gosh, I can do whatever I want. And not really, John, if you're watching this, like I do still, I mind my P's and Q's. But it is a powerful feeling when you're like, oh, hey, I actually can delegate this, or I can, do this and that. And so when you're somebody who, like it's already out in the open, she can't hide her threat level anymore, it kind of empowers you to play a more bold game because it's like, well, people already know, so I don't have to hold back, versus the people that maybe are still kind of trying to like hang underneath the radar aren't able to be like quite as emboldened with their gameplay. Absolutely.
I'm also interested too because I wonder how much our players kind of like followed our social media before the game, because I do remember one person's advice, can't remember who it was, in the week leading up to the challenge was play like it's your second time. And I think that is some of the best advice.
I'm pretty sure it's Amir. Amir says that all the time.
It was Amir. Now that you said it, it was. That is, I think, a really good piece of advice for anyone going into an LRG is that playing like it's your first time and like playing scared, playing like, I'm going to be cautious and try and make it really far just to say I made it really far. Like play big, play bold, play the way you want to play. Like you've already gotten first boot, already won a game. Like really go for it. So I'm glad to see Kaylee doing that. Well, I guess playing like she's playing for the second time because she is playing for the second time. But back to
but that's why people say it.
Yeah,
right,
that's why people say it because
you
she's
see
the example.
You see the difference, absolutely.
But back to those original tribes, we saw on the first night, KP and Nicole did actually spend that first night together. So maybe there could be that four could be linking up because of the relationship there. We saw Ned and Declan were in the starting group together that first night. And then Kaylee was in the group of 5. So with the remaining people in the game was with Paul and Ali that first night. So I don't know what that has to say, but I do think I saw when Paul did not go home, he was celebrating with Kaylee in that moment. So I wonder if they went back to that alliance in any capacity.
I can see that. I can totally see that with Kaylee possibly thinking that, yes, cool, I've had this pair with Nicole, but I still have this bond from day one with Paul. And maybe she thinks that she can beat Paul, right? And maybe then she's like, and maybe she might be threatened by Nicole. Because Nicole, as we've seen, Nicole has more power than we probably thought with the Ryan vote. Like, I thought Kaylee was going to be the swing vote situation, and it was Nicole. And I was personally, I was like, oh, Nicole is more powerful than I thought. Because you see Nicole and you're like, she's short in stature and she's just really sweet and she like even her tribal answers.
She's so fun.
So to see that, I was like, I'm glad I'm wrong. I'm glad that I doubted Nicole. But I think Kaylee being around her this entire time sees that Nicole is.
We
more
also
valuable.
saw a really Nicole won a really key superlative, and if you had to vote right now, who's winning the game?
Yeah.
Nicole. That was the only one she got.
Yep.
So I think again, you see those like big threats that get the big answers, but then the answers that really, really matter, the people that only get one or two answers, but those key answers, like that's the people you got to look out for. The Ali's of the world, the Luke M's of the world, like those are kind of like the more flashy threats that everyone sees and everyone knows is coming, and everyone knows I got to get rid of this person. But the Kayleys, the Nicoles, the people who are just biding their time, the KPs of this world, just biding their time and gonna snatch up the win.
Yep.
I'm
Especially
saying
because we did touching subjects at what, 11, right?
Yeah.
Like that means majority of a group of 11, your jury, majority of them said Nicole. So for me, I would be like, okay, got it. She can't be here. Like, you know?
Done. I know that now. But you
Yeah.
also
And then-
had the same experience with Brinkley. He did get that superlative, and look at you.
And look what happened. We fell for it. Yeah.
But that's why they get it.
Yep,
That's why they
yep,
get the
yep.
superlative. Like they're good.
Yep.
They're
And I remember
awesome.
I was the Ali. I was the most strategic. I got the villain of the season, which I thought was crazy. But hey, whatever. But yeah, I remember getting like ones
Okay.
that. But I was like, really?
Yeah.
Me? Okay.
All press is good press, baby.
Yeah, right. That part. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm really excited to see all of their journeys until the end.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I think we have a pretty strong 9, 8.
8 right now,
8 now.
7
Yes,
by the end
yeah.
of the night.
So 8 that all can get themselves
Absolutely.
there. They, like I said, you just got to be willing to be adaptable. Don't, like, kind of almost like what Val said, like, don't be boring. You know what I mean? Like, do it for the plot, make it interesting, make your story one that you're going to be proud of, but that is going to make the jury and honestly the viewers be also like, damn, I did not see that in that person.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the thing that kind of, I think, pushes you to.
Especially
The crowd.
considering the jury that we're going to have is going to be people who I think are going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we are running out of time.
Yep.
It's 8:30. I believe the challenge is supposed to start at 8:45.
Yeah.
So final question for all of us that we're all going to answer.
Oh, God.
Winner pick.
You know, yeah.
Based
You know
on
it's
right
coming.
now, who's winning the game tomorrow. And if you get it right, I will buy you a fireball shot at Ice House on a Friday.
on a Friday.
They're $1.
A dollar,
What if I
right?
get it right?
I'll buy you 2 fireball shots.
Will you buy me a Dairy Queen cone or a Starbucks instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think.
No, you.
Okay, I'm gonna say my winner pick is KP.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have yours locked and loaded?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you go?
I'm putting it all on my girl. I've been saying it all week. It's Kaylee. She's winning. Done.
You guys are so decisive, and it is incredible.
I have been saying this from the second she walked in. I thought she was going to be a powerhouse. At the first vote of Wiaya, I said, if you want to take out the person who's going to win this game, you take out Kaylee right now. Otherwise, she's done. She's gone. She's gone. She's gone for it. I'm sticking with her. I have no horse in the race. I do not know Kaylee at all. I've never met her in my life. I just really believe in her.
We love a strong woman. For me, it's really hard to pick in between Kaylee, Nicole, KP, and Declan. But you know what? That could be an issue. If they're all kind of, you know, around the same level for me, and it's just incredibly hard for me to, like, pick a favorite out of those foursomes. So I'm going to go Rogue.
Do it.
And I'm going to pick my main man, Ned, you know? I think
Okay.
if there is one person that right now outside of that foursome that has a shot, it could be him, and who knows, he literally could get voted out tonight, and I really hope that I did not, you know, let's
Jinx
knock on
him.
some wood.
There
You
you
get
go.
voted out tonight, and that very well might be the case, but sometimes in this game, you have to, like, just barely survive the disaster to be
Yeah.
able to make it through. Sometimes the people in the best position going into the next day, it's like a lot of people can see you're in the best position, so then
You
they
get
want to turn
clocked.
on you, and you get worried that you can't beat your allies, so then you turn on each other,
Right.
yada yada yada. And I think Ned has done a really great job of just remaining unsuspecting, having good connections with both sides of kind of the different sides that we have been seeing today. And, you know, I don't know, sometimes that person who's stuck in the middle, they get caught and they get got, but he might get the cobster.
I think
Yeah.
he definitely has the best adaptability of most of the players that we have left. I think his adaptability is on par, for sure.
I
And if-
think. Oh.
If I'm gonna throw mine in.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yes! Oh my god!
Woo!
I want to go Declan.
Okay.
Because, hear
Do
me
it.
out. Just because someone doesn't have winning cards right now doesn't mean they won't by the
Absolutely.
end.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I love the emotional journey they have been through this so far.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think, I don't know. I think there's just a lot open for them.
Sure.
And I just
Mhm.
feel like we could just not see the whole picture yet, but I like the possibilities
Absolutely.
that could
Absolutely.
really just complete the whole picture.
Yep.
Yeah, and I
Totally.
think they've made it out of a few really slippery situations so far.
Oh, yeah.
If they get there, if they manage to make it there, I
what
almost
I'm
don't
saying.
see a world where Declan doesn't win if they make it there. Unless I think the only person that they wouldn't is maybe KP.
Yeah.
Just depending on I think who could speak to it better
Yeah.
again.
who
But I
can-
don't
who
know.
can do that first.
I will say someone that I don't think we've talked about a ton on the stream, who I just cannot read to save my life, is Griffin.
Yeah.
Griffin got one superlative in touchy subjects, and it was most likely to yap. That wasn't the exact superlative, but it was most likely to share his secret. And Griffin, you're going to be a special guest next year if you choose to come back because you're a certified yapper. But I'm really interested in how Griffin's endgame is going to
Yeah.
play
Is he a
out.
yapper? Because I feel like
He's not
He
though,
doesn't
but
he
he's
doesn't say much
he
at
clearly
tribal
is.
council. Well, yeah, I mean,
But yeah.
Not to us, but to
Right.
other people he is.
Agreed. Yeah, Griffin is the one player I don't have a read on. I
Yeah.
literally don't know. I feel like he's just keeping everything close to his chest, which is hey, if that's
Yeah.
your strategy, that's your strategy. But from a viewer standpoint, I'm like, but how do I feel about you? Like
Yeah.
I don't know because he seems he's great in competitions.
Yeah.
He's clearly, like you said, he's the one sharing secrets apparently, and so he's very
Which
strategic.
means he has secrets to share.
Right, exactly, and he's still here, so his social connections are good. I just haven't seen it with my own eyes yet, so that would be pretty interesting as well to
Yeah, I have no
hear
idea.
the story from someone who I don't really hear a lot from in general.
And I think that is a really good way to impress at Final Tribal Council. Last thing we're actually going to say for real, and then we're going to wrap it up. But I do think that's a great way to impress at Tribal Council is bringing out information that you knew or things that you did that are unique, things that people maybe didn't know that you did, things that you can claim that aren't prominent knowledge, because then it's like, oh, there's so much more depth to your game than what I saw. And I think that there are a few players that are in this in the pool right now, potentially a Ned, definitely like a Griffin, Aaliyah, yeah, some of those quieter
Paul.
players.
I think he's throwing out that silly, goofy side of himself,
And
and
to
he
flip
is
the
silly,
switch.
goofy, but he
Yeah.
also has like an incredible mind. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about
What's
Survivor.
hiding, yeah.
Anybody can win the
Absolutely.
game, and that is what is so cool. Like
Yep.
everybody has the same shot of
Yep.
getting however many jury votes there is, and that's the name of the game. There's no one criteria. The only thing that you have to do is get the most votes at Tribal Council, and if you do that,
Whichever
you're
way.
the winner.
Yep, and that's it.
No one
Yeah.
can
And
say
that's
anything
it.
about it. So,
Exactly.
okay, well, they can say about it, but you're going to be the one that's holding the cob straight. So that's all that matters. Will, what are our sponsors saying? Not our sponsors.
What?
Well, first of all, are our sponsors here? Did they notice that we got Starbucks, that we got Dairy Queen? And second of all, what are our commenters saying? Do they love us? Do they hate us? Do they have any questions?
They did say that they
What does
love the
Anthony have to
improvements
say?
and they noticed it, so yay for
Oh,
that.
thank you. Appreciate you.
Lots of comments of people rooting for people.
Love that.
Heather is judging your choice of Fireball, which honestly, I'm also judging if I'm being completely
Oh,
honest.
I mean,
First of all, I don't drink Fireball. I would just buy it for somebody else.
yeah, and I normally don't, but if it's $1, Why
We went to Ice House last night. It was
Gotta make
$1.
the Ice House a sponsor.
And,
Yeah, we should work on
And then
that.
one last one that I'll highlight because David Seeger said Will is my winner pick, and I couldn't agree more.
Classic.
That's all.
Alrighty, well,
All right.
All right.
hey, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We are going to go live very shortly after this to go straight into our night challenge where all of our
Yeah.
Wouldn't
contestants
it be
will be
awkward if
coming.
they were literally waiting on us?
Oh, let's hope they
I can't
aren't.
quite tell. I don't think they are.
No.
They're probably not. And if they are, we'll be there shortly. So we will see you soon. Hopefully 5 to 10 minutes to go into that tribal. Thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
Bye.